I am super glad we got a 4-cost card that made other cards bigger. Gwenpool, Captain Carter, Galacta, Kazar, Shuri. It's not enough. We need another one.
Is it worth it?
What's going on, nerds? Read the card, go. Kahhori is a 4 energy, 6 power card that reads on reveal each card in your hand, gives one of your cards in play plus 1 power. So overall impressions of Kahhori. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but we're going with it. Actually really like it. I think it's a cool card and I'm glad it exists. And actually I like it better than Gwenpool.
Huh?
I think Gwenpool's like a rather overplayed card, and I prefer this over that. But with that being said, is the card really stellar or exciting? No, but it does help an archetype that is seemingly getting a lot of cards lately, but actually isn't still very good. And I mean the big hand archetype, or Devil Dino decks, basically. It's a great new player card archetype, and this card fits right into there, so that's cool. But what do you guys think? Hot take time. Rabble Rouser here says, just makes me miss Loki. You're a fucking psycho. Chris Parker says the worst buff card in the game, only really playable on the last turn of the game. I say Okoye wants a word with you. Marco Moraes says Sentinel synergy is going to be crazy. Actually, I do think Sentinel is probably the correct thing to be doing on turn 2 with this card. And in general, I like Sentinel because when you're trying to put more cards in your hand, keep cards in your hand, I prefer Sentinel over stuff like Cable or Maria Hill, especially when you're doing Quinjet. Makes all your Sentinels 1 energy. And if you want your hand to stay big and you play cards like Cable or Mirage, and you play out the cards that you then get with those, it's kind of pointless, I guess. Anyways, I like Sentinel. That's my point. So I agree with Marco. Fernet says Gwenpool with extra steps. Not really what are the extra steps? Having cards on the battlefield? Having cards in your hand? I guess, but you're kind of doing that already. If you're playing this, you're playing it in a deck that puts cards back in your hands. So what's the extra step? I don't know, but I get what you're trying to say. Mr. Rocha says card for free-to-play decks or new players just arriving in Series 3. That's a great point. I do think this is a valid and positive thing about the card. I don't want to pay for Galacta or Gwenpool. They were season pass cards, so I'll open chest for this alternative for my dinosaur deck. Yes. Now, I think season passes are like great value, so you should always buy them. But if you didn't get Gwenpool or Galacta in the past, and you don't have those two, then this is the only other card that does something similar. And like he's saying, with free-to-play newer players, Devil Dinosaur is actually an archetype that like is really good when you're first starting out in the game, because most of the cards are really cheap and powerful. So yeah, Kahhori, if you're like just starting out, you've only been playing for 2 or 3 months, this card's it looks pretty good to you. Grevok with another amazing one. Sebastian Shaw would like her, but he also likes Galacta and Gwenpool. So my hot take is Sebastian Shaw is a dirty hoe. Sebastian Shaw is a fucking slut. You're correct. Gunny T saying airbender looking ass wannabe. Pass. I know this much. That's a reference to Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I don't watch children's shows, so I'm gonna believe you on this one. All right, the good and the bad. What's good and bad about this card? What the fuck am I saying? The first thing here, easy to max. Now, I've said this several times. I actually like this card more than Gwenpool, and this is the reason. If you're playing this on turn 4 or turn 6, it's probably going to be easier to get to max. But if you're playing a bunch of cheap cards of Quinjet, you can play this on turn 4 and probably hit all the cards you want to hit with it. And if you're playing on turn 6, you're absolutely hitting all the cards you want to hit with it. So I think this card is a lot easier to get to max value than Gwenpool. That's the reason I said Gwenpool a second ago. Gwenpool is, if you want to control what Gwenpool hits in your hand, you have to play the cards out. Maybe you don't want to, I don't know. But, and then on top of that, it hits the random cards in your hand. You know how many times I played Gwenpool and it hits like Sarah 3 times and the only 2 cards in my hand are Sebastian Shaw and Sarah? I fucking hate that. I hate Gwenpool. So play something else in your fucking decks.
You need to relax.
This card's easier to max out and get value from. That's my point. Point 2, high floor. Basically what I mean by this is like, when this card's bad, it's still probably going to be like 10 power. And that's pretty good. Third thing here, helps a struggling archetype. This person mentioned this in the hot take section. The Devil Dino archetype. It's great for new players. It's weird that like that archetype got Victoria Hand, which seemingly was like, oh, this is great. This is going to put that archetype over the top. It didn't. So this card coming out probably also won't put that archetype over the top, but it will make it to where Devil Dino is probably the best thing you can be doing if you're just now like a series 3 complete player. And that's cool. All right, on to the bad. Competition at cost. You know what I mean here. There's like a lot of other cards that also do this. Yeah, they're for specific decks, like Khazar's for a zoo deck only, so it's not really competition, but not only cards that add power to other cards at 4, but there are so many 4-drops that are important in this game that justifying Kahhori, sure, I don't remember, in your deck is going to be a pretty difficult task. All right, seemingly not flexible. Guess you could just play this in like whatever deck and be okay with it being like a 4-9 or a 4-10, maybe a 4-11 sometimes. I don't think that's really going to happen. So realistically, this is a big hand archetype card, and that's it. So it's not flexible whatsoever. And the last thing here, probably the biggest issue with the card, it's just not exciting. I don't think anybody's looking at this card and going, oh, fuck yes, I've been waiting for this. Let's look at a potential deck list though, and see why maybe it's not that exciting. All right, this is what I came up with. I don't like making crazy decks for this section. I like making decks that I think are legitimate things you should try on day one with this card if you decide to get it. Don't get it. But anyways, so this is a Devil Dino deck that is lowering the curve so we can play Kahhori out early, it's good, and we can play it out late and it's good. We have Victoria Hand, Mystique, Devil Dino, and Kahhori all as like your payoffs. I guess Collector is also a payoff. Basically give you a reward for playing your deck that has, you know, a lot of cards in your hand. So even Mystique copying Victoria Hand, that's +4 to everything that, you know, is created, which is pretty solid. But everything else here is pretty run-of-the-mill. There are a lot of different options you can go with your put stuff into your hand, your create cards. So like if you don't have Hawkeye, Sentinel's good. It might even be better than Kate Bishop here. If you don't have Iron Patriot, then do Mirage or Cable. I think all of these generated cards are pretty replaceable, especially Valentina. So like whatever you have that is 2 or less that puts cards back in your hand, just play that. The deck will probably turn out the same. So that's cool. It's an archetype that's going to be flexible and not really punish people for not having the exact cards that, you know, are the best. So yeah. All right, on to my recommendation. Should you actually spend resources to get Kahhori? So as far as tokens go, I can't really recommend it. This has come up several times in the video so far, but if you're like just finishing series 3, you don't really have a proper full complete deck for like any archetype except for maybe Devil Dino, and this would put it over the top for you. Yeah, you could spend tokens on this card and I think you'll be pretty happy. You'll be crushing people up until you get, you know, to the top parts of Infinite. You're gonna do fine with Kahhori. But for someone like me, or most of the viewers watching right now who have maybe, let's say 90% of the cards, 85% of the cards, I don't think it's worth it using tokens for this card. As far as keys go, once again, for newer players, I think it's a great proposition, especially if you don't have Hydra Bob or Coal Obsidian. If you don't have either of those two and you're a newish player who's like 50% collection complete, absolutely open and get all 3 of these cards. But, you know, if you're, you know, 80% collection complete or more, no, I don't think it's worth it. Maybe if you don't have well, I don't know. If you don't have Hydra Bob or Coal, they're not bad to have, but I just don't think spending 4 keys on to get Kahhori and like just say one of the other 2, I just don't think it's worth it because maybe Hydra Bob you can make an argument, but personally I don't think it's worth it. So that's what I'm going to recommend. But that's it. Later.